there's so much news going on that I thought I would talk to my friend Kara Swisher, who's one of the smartest, probably the smartest tech reporters, to find out what the heck is going on with Mark Zuckerberg. Are you all interested in Mark Zuckerberg 3.0? It seems like he has sort of really metamorphosized, is that the right word? And is changing a lot of Facebook meta policies. And he went on Joe Rogan, said sort of basically masculinity was being undervalued in workplaces, to paraphrase. And so I thought I would talk to Kara about this. She's very busy, doesn't have a lot of time. Oh, you're nice. Yeah, he has done a complete about face. So let's see. Here's Kara.
Hi.
Your
Sorry,
hair looks
no.
lovely.
No, it doesn't. It needs a haircut. I need a haircut.
How are you?
Good,
The
good.
swish. All
There we
right,
go.
listen,
There we
we're
go.
not gonna
Hold
we're
on.
not gonna
I'm
take
gonna
too
get
much.
in the frame. Let me get in the frame.
Okay.
There, I'm in the frame.
I know that you are
Should I do?
really
Should I make it
busy.
all sloppy? Sorry.
How are you, first of all? Kara, someone just said, who is she? Do you want to explain who you are,
Am
Kara?
I? Oh my God! If you need to ask, I am.
Go ahead,
I'm the
tell
greatest.
people.
I am a tech reporter who's been covering these jackasses for far too long, and now they followed me to Washington. I live in Washington, D.C. now, but I covered Silicon Valley for the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and my own companies, my own various and sundry entrepreneurial companies,
And
much
Kara
like
was
Katie, who
very,
followed in
very
my
early.
footsteps. Yeah,
Very,
she's
very,
stolen
very
every
early.
idea I've ever had.
You
That's all I have to say.
what?
You've stolen every idea I've ever had. That's okay. I'm full of ideas. I'm teasing you. Katie's a great
Well,
entrepreneur too.
I'm trying. And Kara obviously was very early in the game covering tech. She knows all these people, the
Mhm.
aforementioned individuals,
Yeah.
very well. And I think people are just saying, what the heck is going on with Mark Zuckerberg, Kara? So
Mhm.
I thought, who's the smartest person I know who knows Mark Zuckerberg, who's been covering him for years?
Mhm.
And I just want to mention that he announced that Meta is getting rid of third party fact checking and DEI efforts. He's appointing GOP and Trump allies to senior roles at Meta
Mhm.
and on Meta's board. He
Mhm.
just sat down for a 3 hour interview with Joe Rogan.
Mhm.
And made some interesting statements during the course of that interview. So I just want to say, Kara is the host of On with Kara Swisher. She's co-host of the Pivot podcast. She's editor at large at New York Magazine and a CNN contributor. She's co-founder of the technology website Recode and Tech Conference Code, which is the country's premier conference
Was
on tech and media.
was
Which
I?
I was going to say, which
Yeah.
you don't do anymore. All
Yeah.
right. So, and also she's written a great book called Burn Book, a tech love story. All right. Now I did all
All right.
the, and
Okay.
you want to know
She's also
what do
in
you think?
desperate need of hair color. But go ahead.
I just got mine done, so I
Okay,
feel
that's
your
good.
pain.
That's what I
But
was going to say.
what is going on with Mark Zuckerberg? I mean, maybe we should take each step, and I'm not going to keep
Right.
you too long.
That's
But
okay.
the first announcement about saying they were going to get rid of third-party fact checking, I sent you my daughter's story that she wrote for
Mhm.
Airmail because Airmail because she was a fact checker for the
Yeah.
Reuters Facebook partnership.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, were you surprised that
No.
he announced that?
No. I think he's been Look, Mark Zuckerberg. I call him a sad weather vane. Just does whatever he wants. Look, none of this surprises me. I've
I
not been a
think you
fan of
called
him.
him a mendacious weather vane.
No, I called him another word, which I could use it here. Scott, it's Scott's word, mendacious fuck. Since I've covered him since the beginning, and I've covered all these people before Jeff Bezos had money, before Elon Musk had money, and before Mark was just started his company. So I've been covering it for a long, long time at institutions he was very eager to get in, such as the Wall Street Journal and others. And I watched his development over the years, and nothing about his behavior now surprises me. He's always done everything to his own convenience, to his own advantage, to his own self-interest. I wouldn't say he's masculine, as he puts it. I'd say he's aggressive in the style of a manic ferret, but it's not at all masculine. What it is opportunistic and craven in many ways, and you don't quite understand it. And so I covered him, in my book, in a way that I called him the most dangerous person on the planet who didn't even know it. He's done everything with total control of what he's doing. If people don't realize this, but Mark can't be fired from his job ever in his whole life, and I don't believe his children can be. So he's sort of created a dynasty kind of approach to Facebook, and so he makes every decision there. He makes everything is done from him, and so when some of the issues around Facebook, as any company that is created, happened, instead of taking responsibility for them every single time, going back at the beginning of Facebook and its DNA, he's blamed others, he's blamed the media, he's blamed whatever system he happens to be using at the time, or whatever group wasn't in power as he perceived it. And then moved on after creating damage. A lot like I use the Great Gatsby quote, they were careless people. They broke things and broke people and moved on, protected by their lives. And so he's always been this person. For him to shift to Trump, he didn't have to go very far at all.
And well, let's talk about the fact checking. If do you think that Facebook or Meta fact checking actually was effective? And what about
No.
arguments that the pendulum had swung too far and was hurting this idea of free
Look,
speech? Because that is the argument on the other side,
I
as you
know what
know.
it is. It's reductive and ridiculous. First of all, Mark has had some excuse of what was going to work. So I've had so many, it's going to be community care. It's going to be AI care. It's going to be fact checking. It's going to be community notes. It's going to be the oversight board. Guess what? It's all of them, right? Just because did a shitty job at fact checking in an almost impossible situation doesn't mean fact checking works. And instead of just saying something that was a little more sophisticated, he had to pillory fact checkers. And and also lie while doing it, saying, we're moving them to Texas. They already have fact checkers in Texas. Just so you know, they have conservative fact checkers. Everything he says is like so easily checkable and so mendacious. It's exhausting. Like either he doesn't have people telling him the right thing, or he's being willfully ignorant, or he's just a liar. I don't know which one of these. I have no idea. But one of the things that he does is he always has some excuse to why he's causing damage, and it's never them. They've built a system impossible to check. They've created a situation that creates a toxic stew of misinformation and advantaged it. And years ago in the New York Times, I wrote a column where I said he was, he's I call him the weapons deal, the weapons dealer of the digital age. And that's what they do. They provide malevolent players weapons and then have no controls over them, or create rules and then don't enforce them, or they're like every other industry. Pharmacies, chemical companies, planes have a series of regulations. Some of them are too onerous, but they're there. You cannot spill toxic waste into a river without paying. You used to, but you
Yeah.
can't anymore, right? Killing people, killing babies, killing fish, whatever. They can do this without any repercussions whatsoever, and they're still whiny little babies about it, because maybe they make one mistake in fact checking, or maybe they went too far. But directionally, the idea should be we want to make it so it's safer for people. Directionally, it's correct. There can be problems all over the place. I've been pulled out of like Instagram. I get it. They screwed up, but it doesn't mean that it's this like plot by a bunch of they just want to be able to say terrible words like the R word. I'm not even going to say it because I'm an adult. I don't need to say that word anymore. They want to be able to say it. They want to be able to say whatever they want, when in fact it's just about safety of people. And the problem with all these people is, and I've said this to you before, is they've never been unsafe a day in their lives, and so they don't know what safety is. They don't need safety. They don't know what you're talking about. If you're a gay person, if you're a woman, if you're a person of color, they've never experienced this. So instead they say, what's your problem? People should do what they want. People should say what they want, as if there's no repercussions to speech in the same way there's repercussions from chemicals or cigarettes or whatever.
What
So,
about this idea, Kara, of community notes?
yep.
That's what X does,
Sure.
and that's kind of a tell people why you think that is not an effective way to correct dis and mis and malinformation.
Look, there's no good way. The community notes sometimes works, but they're slow and people don't see them. A lot of like corrections in newspapers, when a
Right.
newspaper makes mistakes, then it's on page 6. That doesn't work very well. I've never thought those were correct. I think, changing things, is that correct? There's never been a really good way to correct mistakes in general, but the fact of the matter is that you care to try is really at the heart of it. Community notes is the
Users,
people users correct it, and sometimes it works. It does. There's no question. I like community notes. Let me tell you, the Nazi porn bar that X has become is not working over there, just so you know. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but it can't be the only thing. You think about the fires. Should we just have water, or should we have retardants, or should we build things better, or should we, like, there's 10 solutions that are necessary, and even then those winds are going to blow, those fires are going to start, and we can't stop them on some level. And so it's as if they're saying, well, it doesn't work, don't try it. And that's the thing. They don't want to pay the full costs of the damage their systems do to our society because they don't think they're responsible. They don't. You remember that interview I had with him where he was talking about Holocaust deniers,
right?
right? He wanted to keep them on the site, and because he's Jewish, he had to do his what I call virtue. Say, I'm Jewish, and therefore I allow it, and it has no damage. And I said, let me tell you, Mark, 5 years from now, anti-Semitism is going to rise because of your platform, because you're allowing all this toxic waste to spill over it. And maybe you don't care. And why don't you just say that to us? Why don't you just admit you don't give a fuck if these people downstream get hurt? Like, just say it, because you don't have any culpability. You don't have any liability because of the way laws are written right now. And he never does that. And then you got into trouble for it. And then 2 years later, he stopped Holocaust deniers. And now he just doesn't want to do it. And he has a president who wants him not to do it. And if all he has to do is fly to Mar-a-Lago and kiss up and try to out Elon, which, by the way, he's never going to do because nobody likes Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, on some level, as heinous as Elon Musk has become, he is amusing. And I hate to say that because everyone's going to attack me, but the fact of the matter is he can be when he wants to be, and is a much better entrepreneur by far, by way far. And I still think he's broken in so many ways. But Mark is, he'll do whatever it takes, and it leads him to this phase of his life where he's like, I'm run out of fucks. I've decided I don't care. He never cared, Katie. He cosplayed that he cared, but he never actually cared. And especially the stuff around women. If you listen to that Joe Rogan interview, which is more like a tongue bath, as far as I could tell, um, he started talking about his daughters and his sisters. His next words weren't, I really regard them and respect them. Instead, he moved into masculine energy, right?
Right.
And then it's like, and to me, it was a cry for help. I was like, therapy, call therapy immediately and get this poor man some therapy, because he couldn't praise his daughters. He didn't praise his sisters, or say they had a good effect on him. He made it such a weird, sexist, like, I felt like I was back in Three's Company back in the 70s, this non-sophisticated, which he does with everything, whether it's the First Amendment, idea of men and women, right? What's masculine energy? I mean, if he thinks we need more masculine energy, he can look at his own staff.
Well,
70% men.
I
Like,
wanted to ask you about a change in kind of the meta leadership. He hired this
Joel,
guy.
Joel,
Yes, Joel. Tell me what, gosh, I had his name right
Joel,
here.
Joel
Joel
Kaplan.
Kaplan.
Joel Kaplan
Yeah,
has been
he's a
there.
longtime Republican operative who
He
seems to
is.
be having outsized influence right now.
He
Can
always
you
has.
tell us
He's
who
always.
he is and how he's influencing Mark Zuckerberg's
Well, you
decisions?
might recall when he was sitting behind Brett Kavanaugh at the hearings, and it was a five-alarm fire at Facebook because he's a good friend of Brett Kavanaugh. Nothing wrong with that. There to support your friend. But when you're the top lobbyist for Facebook, maybe you should be talking to him in about, if you want to support your friend, sitting behind him is not the thing to do. He did that, got in a lot of trouble. He was run by a guy named Nick Clegg, who has compromised himself in many ways, by the way, who's sort of pretzel himself to make excuses for some of the damage or mistakes that company made. That's fine. He's your garden variety kind of that. He left and reportedly is sick to his stomach. And the reason he left was because they wanted to do this. And he wasn't, it was too far for him, right? He'd done a lot of pretzeling, but he decided, I'm done being bendy for you people. And I made enough money so I can get out. That's my impression of what happened. And so this guy comes in, and he's always had, he's a I mean, I think he's an activist for the right wing. That's what he is. And he wants to, like, blame censorship, blame liberals, on one level, sure, some liberals have gone too far. Maybe there's too much of, like, it's not, they use the word censorship. Maybe it's too much of scolding, right?
Hmm.
But it's not dangerous. It's annoying. The left is annoying, but they're not dangerous. The right is dangerous, these people, because it results in violence. It results in people treating people like the other. It results in the idea that some people are better than others, right?
Hmm.
And so this guy has been around. He's cosplaying with the First Amendment and free speech, but it's all about power and adjacency to power, essentially, and making more money. And they use all kinds of excuses, like, again, First Amendment. They listen to their words: censorship, First Amendment, and then they never shut up. And these people don't want any consequences, which has been their DNA from the beginning. And they don't want to be told what to do. And so they use words like masculine energy. And if you want more masculine energy at Facebook, as they said, as one thread person, that's bad news for Mark Zuckerberg, because he is the opposite of masculine energy. At one point, I was at a party at Facebook and he literally ran away from me, right? Like, I'm a tiny little thing, but he acted, because I made him sweat on stage once with Malt Mossberg.
Right.
And he physically ran away from me at this party. And all his minions were like, "Oh, he's just really nervous around you." I was like, "What in the world?" I'm like, "Get a set,
Well,
Mark. Like, talk to
well,
me."
I wanted to ask you in practical terms, Kara. He is not the only tech
No.
executive who has been genuflecting to the president-elect.
Yes.
We've seen Tim Cook, we've seen Jeff
Yes.
Bezos, uh,
Right. They're all
and
different in their own way.
okay,
I have to say, you need
all
to.
right. So maybe you could
Sure.
explain
So
sort of
Jeff,
why these tech executives, what they have to gain by
all
having
right.
a closer relationship with Donald
Let's
Trump.
start with Jeff. He's very interested in space. When he was a valedictorian in high school, his speech was about going to the moon or space or wherever the hell he wants to go in space. He's very interested in it. He's trying to get his rocket up. I get it. It's his big interest. So right now, Elon's outplaying him in the space race, and Jeff wants to be on board, and therefore those interests have superseded his other interests, such as owning the Washington Post, etc. And so for Jeff came from Wall Street. He was never liberal. Let me just say, he was not. Like, everyone thinks all these tech people are liberal. They're not. They never have been. At the very best, they've been libertarian light, and some of them have been GOP. Meg Whitman and John Chambers were, but they're, I would say, decent Republicans. They were like the old school kind of people who had, differences of opinion on capitalism and this and that. And these people are sort of, I hate to agree with Steve Bannon. It's sort of like, oh, okay, I'm agreeing with Steve Bannon, but they're opportunistic. They aren't the real thing. They see an opportunity. In Jeff's case, space, I would imagine. Maybe Amazon on the edges, but he's not as involved in that company. Space would be the area. He also is by nature a conservative person. And I think he also, and has a new life. Look, he's changed wives. I mean, he's marrying someone else, and she's different from his first wife, who's Mackenzie Scott, who's been giving away billions of dollars that she got in the divorce settlement. Every time, say, an Elon Musk attacks her, she doubles her giveaway, she talk about male energy, whatever. That's feminine energy, and it's
Yeah.
really like she knows how to throw down. Essentially, she could beat
So,
Mark Zuckerberg
so
up.
you're saying Bezos has space, and that's what's motivating him to.
And he has this new life where he likes to go to Aspen and hang out with Jared and Ivanka. He just likes this Florida. He's from Florida. This is what he was like and what he's
Okay.
always wanted to be.
So,
So
what about
whatever.
Tim? What about Tim Cook?
So there's a series of tech executives: Sundar Pichai, Tim Cook, I would say Sam Altman, who's in particular danger because of his war with Elon, who recognize that they have to play the game, right? That they have to sort of cooperate. And I would say none of them are sort of like Elon or Jeff or Mark. They are sort of, okay, we're going to go. I don't think you'll see Tim Cook sitting next to Trump at the inauguration as Bezos.
What are they worried about, Kara, if they didn't do that?
Oh, all kinds of things that Trump could do, attacks, all kinds of things. They want to do mergers. I wrote a piece when Trump first came in, when they all went to Trump Tower, including Tim and others, and they went and genuflected with Trump in 2016. I think it was in 2016. I wrote a piece where I called them sheeple. I called them sheeple who need sheeple. But I was like, the most powerful people in the world were genuflecting a person they vehemently disagreed with. And they did it so they could get tax breaks They did it so they could get that money was repatriated. There was a bunch of tax money. They wanted less regulation. They wanted more ability to merge and get bigger without any kind of regulation. All the basics is what they wanted. So in their case, Apple's now under scrutiny by I think the FTC or the I think it's the FTC in that case. They're all under scrutiny. And by the way, some of these cases started in the first Trump administration, and now he's sort of shifted to be pro-tech. He was quite anti-tech, I would say, in the first administration. And so they were nervous about the things he could do for the things they wanted, which is essentially boils down to money and power. And so you're going to see them, and in Tim's case, like he met with him, even though he called him Tim Apple, and let him say that he created manufacturing sites that never happened. Like it's part of sort of the Beltway two-step, right? I mean, that to me is what's happening there. In Sam Altman's case, I think he's under a lot of pressure because Elon's trying to beat him legally and now using power of Trump to hold him back because OpenAI is ahead in the AI race. So he's under that pressure. Sundar Pichai, same thing. A lovely person. I've never heard him express any stupidity like the top three do. But he's got the shareholder interest. And same thing with Sundar Pichai. They just want to be like, leave us alone and let us do what we want. I don't find that malevolent. I just find it disappointing. But none of them are, and none of them were activists to start with, except for Reid Hoffman, who gave enormous amounts of money to Kamala Harris. I think he's nervous about. Now, he doesn't have as many business interests he's worrying about. He's on the boards of a lot of things, but he's certainly nervous about, what they could do to him.
Explain who Reid Hoffman is.
Reid Hoffman's a venture capitalist who was on the board of Microsoft. He's just started PayPal, really was the critical person there, along with Peter Thiel. Everyone else was just a minion. But he's just a wonderful venture capitalist and investor and really a thoughtful and interesting person. He's quite liberal, always has been. I think he's backed a lot of stuff, a lot of Kamala Harris. He has given to Republicans too. But he's a very thoughtful, just one of my favorite people in Silicon Valley. I don't always agree with him, but a really good man. Like Mark Cuban. Cuban is the same one.
Before we go, Kara, I just wanted to ask you about what's going on with TikTok. Last
Yeah.
night, I saw a statement from the company saying, no, Elon Musk is not buying TikTok. This morning, my friends told me that is something that's being discussed. Can you tell us what really is going on here?
So you remember a couple of weeks ago, I said, if you listen to Pivot, I said, this is what's happening, just FYI, because the last term, Trump was very anti-TikTok.
And then he got a lot of followers and a lot of positive things on the platform.
Not just that, one of his biggest funders, Jeff Yass, owns 15% of it. So suddenly, because he's a coin-op president, he was like, oh, just a second here, attention and money, time to love TikTok, but he was quite vehemently against it. And he had an executive order to do what Congress then did. And then suddenly he's shifted because money and power. Trump is the only one is reliably does the same thing, which was, you got money? Oh, I'll change my mind.
But also,
literally.
So I think
if I had 400 million
influence for him.
Right. But if I had $400 billion right now, he'd be loving the lesbians and passing all kinds of gay rights bills because I would throw money at his face. So, in that regard, he's pretty reliable.
You're saying,
yeah, right. If I was in Elon Musk's position, he'd do whatever I wanted to. So in some ways, that's sort of like a relief. You kind of understand that particular trade-off. But I think what's going to happen. So the Congress passed the law banning it, and if it didn't sell and get out of Chinese hands. About 5 years ago, I wrote a column talking about the national security issues around TikTok. I got attacked like crazy by people, and I was like, I'm sorry, this is a national security threat. And I get the First Amendment arguments, but China's now got. You worry about these balloons over our country. 600 million balloons are now. And they were like, prove it. I'm like, why do you even have to prove it? We can't do this in China. Why are they allowed to do it here? Why they don't own a newspaper, they don't own networks, they don't own chip companies. Why do they get to own this? Why do they get to control it? Now, whether they're controlling it or they're influencing it, it doesn't really matter. They can, right? That's really the influence. And so I think Judge Jackson made in these arguments has made a good argument. It's about association. You're not allowed to hang out with Hamas you can support them if you want to, if you're an idiot, but you can do that. But you can't, like, if you can't associate with known terrorist groups, you can't associate with foreign countries, you can't lobby for foreign countries without saying so. Like, we have all these laws in place, and just here they don't. And so that Congress ended up passing a law that they should have made more broad around privacy and foreign ownership, et cetera, because X has a lot of foreign
Mhm.
ownership. Facebook got a big chunk of money from Russia at the beginning, Russian investors. It should have been broader, but it was for TikTok because everyone could agree, right? All the Republicans and that for different reasons. And so now the question is, whether it gets enforced on January 19th, which is before Trump is in office. So he can't now, but put his thumb on the scale as easily. And so the question is, does it have to sell before that? And the Supreme Court has to decide whether to delay it or just say, no, national security trumps the First Amendment in this case, which the appeals court said. The question is, who's going to buy it and who's going to control it? And the last time out, it was this weird amalgamation of Microsoft, Walmart, and Larry Ellison doing the stuff. I suspect Ellison will still be in there. Oracle has been conducting some of the information on the
We've
site
been
for many.
hearing about Kevin
Oh,
O'Leary. We've been
oh,
hearing about
no,
the guy, sorry,
Frank McCourt.
Frank McCourt
Right.
from the Dodgers, right?
Mm, 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 mm,
No. But what
no.
about
Bobby Kotick. No, no, there's a
Could
bunch.
Elon Musk buy TikTok?
Yeah, he could. Yeah, sure. If Trump sort of leans it his way, like
That
if
wouldn't be an issue with like a monopoly or
no,
anything, having
well,
X and
there's right.
TikTok.
There's Facebook.
Yeah,
There's Blue Sky. There's
Instagram,
lots of
true.
competition. It would be sort of the end game, presumably. It's why the money that he spent on Twitter that everyone thought he wasted is not wasted, right? He's already gotten a lot out of it from, Mark Cuban was the smartest person when he bought. When everyone was talking about how much money Elon was wasting, Mark said it's not about money; it's about influence around the world. When he goes in as the head of Tesla and the head of,
SpaceX.
SpaceX, he's not as important. That's like the head of GM. Who cares, right? When he goes in as the head of X in foreign countries, he gets what he wants, right? That kind of thing. And I think Mark was right, and I think he used it and parlayed it into this relationship with Trump. For a very small amount of money, he has now doubled his net worth to $400 billion. And not on any economic, Tesla is not doing as well as it was, but
Right.
the stock has gone up 60. So it's a meme stock at this point. And so it's an interesting thing of whether he's definitely in the pole position. And therefore that's why you see Mark going in, because he doesn't want that to happen, because Instagram/Threads is under threat. And so if you look at everything in terms of money, Katie, it explains it all for you. These people who are wealthier than anyone in the history of the world, they're so poor, all they have is money and they want more of it. So that's where we are.
So bottom line, do you think that Elon Musk is going to
I
buy
don't know.
TikTok?
I don't know. I mean, he'll be among, if he wants it, he certainly is in a pole position, right? There's a lot of people. There has to be some sort of partnership if that's the case. And then the question is, what other things what leverage can Trump use on the Chinese on this thing, And of course, Elon has some very dicey statements he's made about China. Let them invade, essentially, he has a big business interest in China. So that's why China would like him to have it, because they have some influence on him. He
Yeah.
has factories there, he sells cars there. It's not the best owner. You don't have someone who's under the thumb of China to be the owner of TikTok. And that's kind of a sort of letting the fox guard the hen house kind of thing. And so, I think what has to happen is Congress has to take its responsibility around privacy and other issues, which they never have, and do something. But they're not going to under this administration. And with Mike Johnson, who is just, now Facebook just is putting a factory for AI chips in his town, right?
And
Like,
yeah.
he's easy to buy. That guy's easy to buy. And so that this is what they're doing. They have unlimited funds to be able to put all kinds of factories in people's areas, or it's a version of a payoff, right? Here you go, Louisiana. Why are we putting an advanced factory in Louisiana? Like, that's because that's where all the skilled workers are. No, it's like I mean, I don't know, whatever.
Well,
It's a little edge payoff, I guess.
I mean, what a
I,
world.
I know. Well,
It's sort of hard to believe, but it's important that we tell people what's going
can
on.
I
And
give you
Kira,
another thing I think that's happening, especially with this wildfire? Like, and then you
yeah,
have Patrick Soon-Shiong, who's lost his ever loving mind in Los Angeles,
that
and he
he's
used to
the
be
publisher of the
LA
LA
Times.
Times,
He
everyone.
used to be very almost irritatingly liberal. I did an interview with him a couple of years ago, and now he's like shifted because he's so thirsty to get in on it, right? He's the most thirsty media executive around. He's this billionaire and made money from, he's brilliant in when it comes to
Science and
vaccines and
cancer stuff.
biotech,
Yeah, yeah.
but as a person, he's a terrible person. So the question is why these people now literally he tweets all day. They never shut up. Like they have to tell us every little thought in their tiny little brains, right? And because they're good at science or building rockets or anything else, they now know about Afghanistan. They know about Ukraine. They're going to tell us about, I don't know, Elon tweeted the other day about cesareans, like his thoughts on cesareans. And I was like, I had one. I need you to shut up about that topic because you don't know what you're talking about, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what they're doing. And so now by coming to Washington and honestly stalking me here, that's what I feel like. No, I'm kidding. They're now going to the people that disdained government have now figured out the game is so cheap that they can control everything with the final thing, media, government. They control media, they control government, and they're then going to use those to leverage into using misinformation, like all that misinformation in California now. They're going for California. They're going to be like, oh, we're going to make everyone all mad and hot and bothered about water supplies and this and that, when it's, again, a complex topic in California that has no simple answers, and reduce it to Gavin bad, no hydrants, don't vote for the Democrats. Like that's what they're doing. They're putting these tiny little messages out that are so stupid that and
And
that,
they're
that they
not so
work.
tiny. I mean, they were pretty loud and
Oh,
immediate, right?
they can't immediately. It's DEI. I mean, I think DEI killed Amelia Earhart at this point. They're going to go like, who killed Jimmy? Where's Jimmy Hoffa? DEI, like, like everything is like at this point, you do laugh at liberals sometimes for some of their stuff, but now everything they do, everything for liberals is like racism or sexism or homophobia. And often it was, by the way. In this case, DEI is responsible for everything. Like, give me a break. They're so laughable in there. It'll slap back at them at some point because as usual they're gone too far and they're going to take too much and they're going to and then people will be onto them, but they do have an enormous, powerful propaganda machine that they have. And that's what it is in the end, Katie. Don't use words like misinformation, disinformation, polluted information streams. It's propaganda is what it is. And it can work really effectively going forward. No matter what side you're on. And if you're a principled conservative or a principled liberal, this is an anathema. The ability of billionaires to sit next to power and nobody else to get in should be an anathema to what America is. And in many ways, it's not because it's happened over many, many times. But to me, anyone who's conservative would want as many voices as possible and as many companies as possible. And to let these, again, I can't believe I'm agreeing. It's sort of like agreeing with like Satan, but you know, Steve Bannon is right. These people are not true believers, they're true opportunists. Not that I want Steve Bannon in charge, right? Like at
Well,
all, because like, shall I pick the racist or the populist or or the hater of immigrants? Which one of these terrible people do I want to back? And so that's what the real sadness is here is that our innovation and the reason we beat places like China and Russia is because everything bubbles from the bottom up. But right now, the people at the top are trying to control everything, so the bottom can't displace them. Where the young eats its old. And I don't mean, that's how we win when innovation bubbles from the bottom and it's a fair playing field. And they're trying to create a playing field where they control every aspect of our society now in ways that they will be able to manipulate it for a very, very
and it's
long time.
not even the proximity to power. It's all based on what is their
Yeah,
self-serving interests,
right.
right? I mean,
Always.
the
You
power
follow the
is
money.
just the stop to whatever it is they
And
want
when
to
I say
achieve.
follow the money, I don't mean just money. I mean follow the money in a broader sense. And I think that's what they cannot. Now they believe their own bullshit now, right? They believe they know a lot more about Ukraine. There's a bunch of venture capitalists talking about vaccines. Sit the fuck down. Like, stop it. You can disagree. You can say, okay, vaccines have repercussions. Yes, of course. Everything in life, car driving has repercussions, but to make it into this ugliness is so disingenuous and reductive. And they don't care because all they care about is winning the fight, not about making. The one thing I take away leaving you with is, how many solutions do these people ever have? They only tell you what's wrong. They only tell you why the firefighters, some of the bravest people on earth who don't talk about it, they don't want to solve anything. They don't want to put out fires. They don't want to figure out a better way to do it. They want to tell you why you're wrong almost always and why it sucks and why you're getting screwed so that you sit in a permanent state of hate and anger and finger pointing so they can run everything at the top. They're making us all hate each other so they can control the entire thing. And it is absolutely true in that regard. And it
These
works.
aren't these aren't foreign adversaries. These are people
No,
within the country. It's pretty disturbing stuff.
it's
Kara,
disturbing. Can I give you one last
yeah.
thing? It always comes round. Let me just tell you, in 4 years or 8 years, when a more and they will be it will change again. By the way, it will. I know people don't think that, and they think this is a permanent. It will not. Nothing is a permanent. Every autocrat has died dead in a hole. If you look at it, dead in a hole. Hitler, Mussolini, Saddam Hussein, they end up the Libyan, Muammar Gaddafi, dead in a hole. The Ceausescu's. Eventually, their time comes, right, for all of this bullshit. And when it does, you can be sure Mark Zuckerberg will be calling himself they, them when he has to, because that's what he does, because he doesn't have any values of any lasting quality that really say, this is who I am, a decent man who wants to leave the world a better place than I came here. He will pretend and cosplay that. And at that time, I'll call him a liar too, even if I agree with him, because this is not, he doesn't deserve your respect when he shifts like a sad, pathetic weather vane, depending on who's in power. Always watch those people because, they're the most dangerous of all, I think,
I
personally.
like that. One thing I like about you, Kara, you never
Oh,
have a strong opinion.
well, was I
Okay?
right? Was I right? Everyone's like, you're so mean to these people. I'm like, I'm not mean enough. I like, let me just say, they're going to kill me in the end.
No, they're not.
Katie, you're going to carry on, right? You're going to pick up the staff. Like, I go down,
No,
like,
I'm older than you are,
no,
Kara. So
you're sticking around to
you
the
need to
time
keep
immemorial.
going.
Oh, no.
Okay.
All
Thank
right. Thank
you.
you. All
Thank
right.
you.
Good luck.
Great to
Okay.
see you.
Bye.
I'll
Love
talk to
your
you soon.
live.
Okay.
All right. Talk to you
Bye.
later.